Hoffman here from Turbomedic. I know we're getting bombarded with all kinds of Black Friday deals, Cyber Monday deals, but I wanted to actually give you some value today. And I did a little research and I actually tried to find out what's the number one question that EMT students ask when they're in class and they're starting their training. The number one question, more or less, it is what the best way is to study so I can actually pass the NREMT. There's lots of different answers to this, and there's different ways to go about this. And I'm going to do some other videos, I think, covering these different aspects to answer this question. But looking at some of the things that I could cover to help best answer this question, the one that came up the most in my mind that I think you can start doing right away to help you is exam questions. I did a shorter video on this not too long ago, but I want you to just understand why just doing the questions doesn't work. A lot of EMT students, even paramedic students that I've helped in the past and coached and whatnot, they come to me all the time and they say, Jim, I did 200 questions a day and I'm still not ready. There's a truth to doing questions that you need to understand. Just clicking through questions and answering multiple choice questions, right? It's kind of like watching somebody exercise and hoping that you're going to get stronger. You don't pass the NREMT by doing more questions. You pass it by learning from each question. So what we want to do is turning a switch, sort of, right? Turning doing questions into training with questions. Now, before you start freaking out thinking this is a lot of work, I want you to just stick with me here because I think what I'm going to tell you is going to make it seem much more doable, and it's going to really, I think, click in your head that by doing what I'm going to suggest to you in this video is going to really cut down your study time and make you retain the information more as well, okay? So the big idea, of course, testing versus training, like I just mentioned. So think of it as two modes. You get the test mode. You try to see your score. You're rushing. You're moving fast with each question, right? That's testing mode. Training mode is where you're going to slow down. You're going to ask yourself, what is the question trying to teach me? And you write stuff down. So for most of your study time, you're going to want to focus on being in training mode, not testing mode. So the good news is you can do fewer questions, but you can do them well. So instead of 100 fast questions that you might try to do, switch it up and do 20 to 30 questions in one sitting. Take your time. If you have an app or something you're using that has a tutor mode, use that. Maybe give you the right answer right away. I personally don't like questions that give you the right answer. Because to me, you see it and you go, oh yeah, I knew that. You don't delve any further into that. And you just sort of like give yourself the out that you knew the question, you just kind of messed up a little bit. I find that telling people to find out why the question they answered wrong is wrong, in essence, they're in that study mode, they're in that training mode. So your goal is not to beat the exam questions, not to get ahead of them. Your goal is to learn at least one new thing from almost every question. So one breakdown you can do for every question is sort of using 3 simple questions that you ask yourself, you ask of the question after every one. So after each question, whether you get it right or wrong, of these 20, 30 that I mentioned, ask yourself, what was this question really about? So this is about shock, or this is about airway, or this is about a stroke or a CVA. And say, why is the right answer right? Why is it correct? But say it in plain English so that you understand it. This is right because the patient can't breathe well, so opening the airway comes first. Or this is right because signs of stroke mean we need to get them to a stroke center fast. And you want to find out when you're looking at it too, not just say, oh, I got it right, great. No, hold on a second. Ask yourself, why are the other answers that are given to me wrong? And then again, answer it in plain English. This one is wrong because it skips the airway. This one is wrong because EMTs don't do that skill. Or maybe this one is wrong because it doesn't fix the main problem a question is asking you. This is going to train your brain to think like the test, not just guessing the questions and answers on a test. Now, over at Paramedic, I have the exam success formula there. Part of that is I try to encourage people to have sort of like a notebook to help them along. Part of that notebook, I like to call it the mistake section. You don't need a fancy system. Use a small notebook. Use the apps, note apps that your phone might have, or even just use index cards. But I want you to go ahead and think of it as when you miss a question or you guessed and got lucky. That's why I'm saying about going back and looking at each one. Why is it right? Why is it wrong? If you guessed the question and got lucky and it's right, don't just blow it off like, oh, okay, it's right, I'm going to move on. No, man, you got to really focus and understand what's happening with these questions. So you want to write quick things down for this mistake sort of section of your notebook, or mistake index cards you might be creating. And 3 quick things you want to write down. Whatever topic it was, whether it's shock, pediatric, airway, OBGYN, cardiac, whatever. So write down the topic. The second thing you want to write down in your card in this mistake book is what you missed. Say, what did I miss? Maybe you didn't notice the low blood pressure and that it equals shock. Maybe you forgot that epinephrine is for anaphylaxis and not just any allergy. Or maybe you're getting a little frustrated, and even though it's been hammered to you in class, maybe you skip checking the airway first. And then the third thing you want to write down on this index card or your notebook is look for the new rule or lesson that you can take away from it. Always fix airway and breathing before worrying about blood pressure. Anaphylaxis equals airway, breathing, circulation problem, not just a mild rash. Or if a patient's not stable, that is always your first concern. So keep each note short and simple. Like I said, what I just said to you, that's 3 lines. So let's say you do the first one, it's airway. That's the topic, your number 1, the topic, airway. And then the second line is going to be, you skip checking airway first. And then the third line is going to be, always fix airway and breathing before worrying about a blood pressure. So by doing this, guess what you're doing? You're kind of building your own little NREMT playbook, okay, that you can refer back to and going to help you study more. Now, one thing you need to think about doing is reviewing. Don't just write this on a notebook. Don't just do these 20, 30 questions and then one and done type thing. Think about reviewing these notes you're making a couple of times a week. That's why they're short, right? They're short. 3 lines, 3 or 4 lines, each one of these index cards. 3 or 4 lines for each one of the questions. Review the mistakes that you made 2 times a week, 3 times a week. Open up that notebook, open up the notes app on your phone, read through all of your old mistakes and try to say the rule you made out loud without looking. So this is something, it's kind of goofy. They call it spaced repetition. But what you can try to do, think of it like this. I'm reminding my brain of the hard stuff so I don't forget it. And I think over time, because you're reviewing, you're understanding the question, you're understanding why things are right, why things are wrong, you're going to start to notice, hey, I'm not missing as many questions on shock or on airway. I'm finally getting these OB questions right. And this is how you start to realize that this training method of using practice exams is actually working. Stick with me, guys. I got a little bit longer to go here, but I want to make this really valuable for you so that this really pays off, okay? Step 5, guys, is to treat all the questions you get, every question, think of it sort of like a little mini scenario. Don't rush. Right? This is why you're not testing mode. You're in training mode. So don't rush. Imagine it's a real call you have. Ask yourself, is the patient stable or unstable? What's the biggest problem they're having right now? Airway, breathing, mental status, circulation, whatever it is, right? What's the biggest problem? And what can I, as an EMT actually do? Think about what your skill level is, what skills you have. Oxygen, BVM, an EpiPen, CPR, positioning, rapid transport, all of that. And then pick the answer that fixes the biggest life threat first and that fits your EMT scope and that keeps the patient the safest. So think about those 3 things when you're answering these questions. What's the biggest life threat? Is it in your scope as an EMT? And will the patient remain safe during that treatment or during the intervention that you might be able to select from? If you start doing this every time, again, your brain's going to start thinking like a real EMT and not just a test taker. Now, you might say, all right, well, Jim, this is great. I'm learning stuff, but I've got like 700 questions I can take, and I'm dying to get into them to see how much I know. What have I learned? I'm doing this studying. I'm reading this book, this textbook. I'm doing this. You need to understand when to start switching from training mode to testing mode. So most of the time, most days, you are going to be focusing on training mode. Slow, you're learning, you're writing notes, and those are most of the days of what you want to do. Now, maybe once a week, you use testing mode. You actually time the exam, you don't use notes, and you treat it just like the real thing. One thing that I also suggest to do into testing mode is that you don't time it. You just do it untimed. Another method is you can do it open book. That sort of reinforces the training mode as well. Depending on your comfort level, what you want to do. But I think when you're doing most days testing, training mode, and then you do test mode, all right, having it timed with no notes and treating it like a real exam is going to benefit you the most. But now after you do the test mode, that once a week, you go right back to training mode. Find the questions you missed when you took the test. Add them to that notebook that I mentioned, those index cards, mistake index card, mistake part of the notebook that I mentioned. Add those questions to that and learn that rule that I talked about that you were missing. Guys, I hope this helped. I know this is a little bit of a longer video than I put out, but I just felt like this is one segment of people asking what's the one thing they can study to pass the NREMT the first time. I wanted to pull out something that I felt you could do right away that's going to help you start to understand the content that you're studying. I'll do some more videos going deeper into some of the other areas as well, but I want to get this one out to you to get you to understand. Just to summarize real quick, guys, want to pass the NREMT? Don't just do questions. Train with questions. Do fewer questions, slow down, and sort of like squeeze a lesson out of every question. And every time you miss a question, write down what the question was really about, why that right answer is right, and why the other answers are wrong. I promise you, you do this again and again, and the tests you're going to be taking and the practice tests you're going to be taking are going to stop feeling like it's a big guessing game, and they're going to start feeling like you're doing patient care and that you already understand what it is and what you have to do as an EMT. All right, guys, that's it for me. I really hope that this quick video helped you. As always, Jim Hoffman from TurboMedic. Stay safe.